We are talking with Oksana Vovchenko today, and our topic is what makes us human. Hello, Oksana.
Hello, Boris.
So, what would you like to tell us about us being humans?
Let me introduce this topic a little bit. What would I say that a couple of centuries ago, religious ideas about humans' divine origin dominated. But later on, the scientific approach changed our views toward belonging to animal realm, right? Nonetheless, we humans contrast ourselves to animals. So that today's topic is if the difference really exists, what makes this difference?
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Well, again, we have different approaches. From biology perspective, the difference is very small, very small. Our genetics is very similar to apes, and in general to the whole kingdom of living beings. In all our processes, we are very, very, very close to animals. And more we learn about it, more we find out how close we are. But obviously, we feel different. We feel different. And objectively, we have certain achievements that most of others don't. We can find similarities in in insects, for example, or in ants that build their own cities, but we can tell that their communication system is so different from ours. They have the chemical communication system. They communicate through the substances, and so, it's very different from us. The same is the bees. Again, very well organized structure, but we cannot say that they're even close to what we have achieved. The question of consciousness is fiercely debated. It was usual to think that animals do not have consciousness, but the experiments show that again the difference between us and the cat in terms of consciousness might be very slim and very difficult to find. So that's what biological approach. In terms of philosophical approach, we can tell that we think, therefore we exist. We deem ourselves as thinking beings, therefore we are thinking beings. It doesn't have to have any additional proof. Psychologically, how we are developed, we have a lot of motivation based on our nature, on our biology, and I have a tendency to find these impulses almost in every expression of human life. How we dress, how we talk, how we act, we can find in our sexual drive, our desire to get more resources or to help others. Again, I'm finding the grounds, biological grounds as well. Here, there is a danger because too much biologization is making poor judgment about human nature. We cannot just tell that everything we do, think, and might achieve is based in our biological beast, right? But we need to admit, and if we do not admit that a huge part is based on that, we will be making mistakes in predicting the behavior, in understanding our human nature. And last but not least, religious approach. There are many religions, though. Again, because we were raised in either atheist or Christian environment, but atheism was against Christianity. So we think of religion as Christianity alone. But as a matter of fact, there are so many, the huge variety of different religions. And not in all human is considered divine, okay? Buddhists, they don't even believe in any particular God, right? But if we're talking about the Christianity, yes, this is a central idea that, and it comes from Judaism, where on the first pages of Bible, it has been said that God has created man in his similar to himself, right? And Christianity continues this idea by believing in God that has become a man to get crucified for the forgiveness of our sins. It's very, very human-like. So yeah, that's what makes us humans in terms of modern state of thought. And what's your opinion?
Well, I think that the real distinguish between us and animal realm is not the way we organized our societies, and even not the way we communicate, for example, and even not the question of consciousness. But my point of view is that we are really distinguished in accumulating information, and the way we accumulate information and transit it from one generation to the other, to the next one, is very different from what is biology do. So the most information we transfer to the next generation is not genetic information. It's not biologically intrinsic. So we create what we call culture or informational space, and this is what is very special, in my opinion. So the most what make us human really is culture and education. We born as animal, but we become human during years, even decades. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. We know those scientific facts that when a little baby is left without human attention in the environment of animals, he cannot develop later at all, neither speech or any other human attributes. So yes, I would say that human is an educated animal. There is hope that other animals can be educated, if not in the same way, but somewhat. And we do believe that even our pets are quite different from their wild friends. Those who have the experience of having a pet, we believe that they understand a lot of things that we tell them, and they have certain ways of communication with us. We also have very smart species like dolphins, like octopus. They are very, very smart. The only thing that they didn't develop for millions and millions of years, those species exist longer than humans. They didn't develop anything complicated. They are satisfied with what they have on the level of what they have. In terms of the communication and so-called elements of culture, we can state that some species, they might possess it, we just don't understand it. We do not understand how they do it, but we obviously might think that they do have some sort of efficient communication. Abstract thinking, again, plus or minus, difficult to find in animals. But as you said, it's all this is learned, and certain transformations with the animals might bring us to the times when we will have smart animals, like pets that will talk. We already have these attempts having these translators to translate whatever they make the sounds. But when we learn to read their brain waves and interpret them, we might really understand what they think, and they would be able to communicate to us. And God knows whether it will be just plain, I want to eat, I want to sleep, I want to play, or maybe it might be more complicated. So along with the robotization and artificial intellect, I think there's a direction where the animals might
I'm sorry,
develop.
pause for a while. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So, and what's your opinion on the ability of the animals to develop to certain levels with our help, both genetics and some devices, and as a result of the research?
Do animals have potential to design devices?
No. We design devices to develop them.
To develop them? I would not talk about development. I do not believe that we can develop someone. I do not think that humans are higher in progress. But about communication tools, yes, I think we can design some communication tools just to, yeah, we can get signals, but can we interpret the signals correctly?
Interpret
Because
these signals.
yeah, they're very different. They are very different.
Mm-hmm.
So how to hear the voice of others, I really do not know.
But getting back to humans, we also have the mythology that human is something very noble. And when we say what makes us human, it's not a biological question at the most. It's mostly the question of certain heroic image that we have made for humans, for ourselves. And when we say human, in the same way we say that it's something very noble. And another indication is the well-known Roman saying that I'm human and nothing human is alien to me. It's like being a human, having all those sins that we attribute to humans usually. Lying, cheating, looking for ways to grab more resources, being human.
Yeah, I would even add that it's about in slavery. So when we do not consider someone as a human, we could in the past enslave them. That was important those times. So if you do not treat someone as equal, you can just use him as a labor force.
Well, the way how we treat the labor, it's quite different. I think a lot of thinking about the labor is coming from latest times. Humans were good laborers in old times, and it was the style of their life. They were just working all day long, 16 hours and so on. And this negative connotation about the labor is very modern. And if you watch those old chronicles and movies, very old, you see how skinny they are. All of them are very skinny, even in successful societies, and they might be well dressed. And obviously, probably they don't have any lack of quantities of the food, but still they are very skinny. So the style of life we have now, obviously, is not very usual for human bodies. We gain weight, we are very immobile, we might be more depressed, we have way more chaos in our heads because we are raised as special, and then the life shows that there is nothing special about us in a good sense. And I would say that the harmony before probably was higher than now. And if the slave thinks that it's okay with what he is at his position, and the slave driver, I'm not supporting the slavery, but I'm just trying to understand the context when such societies has developed. Aristotle, which is very respectful philosopher, was considering slaves as the instrument which is predestined to do the jobs and other things. So we make a strong mistake, a huge bias, by implanting our modern Western vision towards different societies. And that's why we fail in our relationship with many other countries in the world, like Iraq, Iran, Russia, other countries, because those values that we have here, not necessarily real values out there, and vice versa. So I wouldn't make it. Another thing is that many describe their life as slavery when it's so far away from real slavery, but they feel like that they are not achieving anything, that they are just working for food and shelter, and their lives are hopeless, and a lot of depression, obesity, a lot of suicide. I don't know what were the rates of suicide before, but we know that in very well-developed countries like Denmark, the suicide rates surprisingly are very high. We had this video about measuring the happiness, and again, surprisingly, the happiest ones might be not the wealthiest ones, but for example, Ghana and other countries that you wouldn't expect to be very happy have the indexes that are way higher. But again, I agree that humans became humans by implanting certain experiences from previous generations. But here we will have to again answer ourselves, what was first, the egg or the chicken or the egg? It should have started somewhere. And there are some theories that some kind of aliens have come 15,000 years ago and maybe earlier and turned humans into humans, gave us certain practices that we have never experienced before, like agriculture. And there are fresh research that agriculture didn't make people better off. When they analyzed the bones of the gatherers and hunters, it shows that they were more healthy, and the nutrition was more steady and abundant than in agricultural societies. But we know that agricultural societies has changed the prospects and the way how people treat the land. When you are just hunter and gatherer, yes, it's important what are your hunting grounds, but you can change them easily, moving with the animals. But when you work the land becomes the key. And that's where comes the rigid borders and ownership for the land and all different, both evils and not evils, but what is intrinsic part of our even modern society, right? So what do you think about that, about the things that probably the progress doesn't make humans way more better off?
Yeah, perhaps yes, because that was not just a progress, that was a necessity, a kind of necessity. I think that humans started agriculture not on their choice, but because of climate change. And probably they were forced by the circumstances
That's
to doing
the
that.
common
That was just a way to survive.
Oksana, that's the common mistake. The scientists now say that it's way more risky to engage yourself in agriculture because you invest most of the year, you invest a lot of effort and you do not get any outcome. And if there is a drought or weather change or other factors, you lose your harvest and everybody dies.
I understand, but if the only alternative you have just to walk across ice and the snow, so there is no way, you just use what you have. If you have very limited land, so you try to increase the productivity in this land. Well, I do not know if they really increased or not, but humans survived. That's
Another thing is
I
that
don't think that exactly agriculture contributed to switching from animal society to human society. I think that the process began when humans started to using external tools to store information. The first step when humans tried to store information outside themselves, depicting it on the walls or somewhere else, trying to fix it anywhere. That was the first step,
yeah,
in
but
my
animals do
opinion.
it too.
Just using not
The
our
bears,
own
for
brains
example,
only,
they
but
leave
some external tools
they
to
leave
deliver.
their like they leave the marks on the trees, and a lot of animals, they leave a lot of information outside of themselves about themselves, and insects and ants are able to communicate very important information
Yeah.
to others.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
what I
They
want to
do.
say is, I'm talking to a lot of scientists on this channel, and almost in all directions of science, what we find is that the school answers are not quite relevant. Like at school, everything is clear and straightforward. But when you're talking to professors, it turns out that those answers are not able to explain the phenomena that we actually see in research. To transform some sorts of agricultural plants into the edible, efficient plant that can feed the tribe requires a very special genetic modification. Because when you compare, for example, the main cultures like corn and especially other cultures that we make bread from, they require significant changes that very difficult to explain how you can actually make artificial, naturally, like by selection. You have nothing to start with. Like you will not be able to feed generations of your tribe if you try to base it on the wild species of these plants. So this, and also we know that this change has happened everywhere on Earth approximately at the same time, which is very difficult to explain too. If you explain it with weather change, but the weather was quite different in different parts of the world. If we can explain it in the northern parts as changes in our ice sheets, what about the Central America and other parts? Why it all happened all at once? So a lot of things that we think that well explained, they are not well explained. They are still the mysteries.
Yeah, perhaps yes, but about cultivating plants, I saw several Animal Planet movies about how animal cultivate plants, and they do it very successfully everywhere. But yes, I agree that we oversimplify things. Why? Because we just try to analyze one or two factors and get a very simple logical conclusion on it.
Exactly.
But things works complexly altogether. So we need some holistic mindset. And it's very hard to track all the connections from all the factors and their share of contribution to the total.
Exactly. And this approach might change our question, not what makes us human, but who makes us human? Who made us human? Our answer is ourselves. The answer is ourselves. We make ourselves humans. Another approach that we need to talk about is the future development of humans. Artificial intelligence. I was so surprised to see the company Boston Dynamics, I think, or Robotics, that producing the robots that can dance, that have better balance than humans. They don't fold, or if they fall, they hold their balance better than us. And the development of the artificial intelligence. And here we can see that these things are going to influence how humans will be humans. For example, I saw this video where they test those robots and they beat them up and they fall. And I know that it's just the machines, but I have the feeling that something unjust is happening. You're not supposed to treat anyone that way. So it's a very complicated question, how long we will still be humans, because already the artificial intelligence, or at least the computerized world, is changing us. We are getting way less memory. We don't have to memorize things at all, almost at all, except only for the passwords. But very soon it will be biometrics that you don't need any passwords. As already, I hardly remember my passwords because I use the thumb to open the phone and other things. So we are getting changed right as we speak by the technology that we have developed, even without installing in our brain some devices. But this is not out of question either. Already we have those experiments, quite successful experiments, that allow us to do things that previously have been considered as magic or science fiction, right? And also the involvement of artificial intelligence in our society can change us as well. I am not very high opinion of humans. I think that we are quite primitive, quite inefficient, and we have a lot of rudimental inclinations since our biological roots that really interfere with our lives. They ruin our family life, they ruin our careers, and we try to give psychological explanations to the things that might be purely biological, or at least at the most biological. And I believe that all those atrocities that we can witness, like war, like people that try to scam others for millions of dollars, businessmen that aiming to get money at any cost in the quantities that they will never be able to spend. There is so much injustice and inefficiency in the world. We still have thousands, if not millions, people on the brink of dying of hunger. We still handle the disease crisis, COVID, in a very inefficient and I might even say stupid way up until now. Even by having the efficient instruments to treat the situation, we still keep doing stupid things. Listen to the news. In any number of news that you will listen today, you will see human stupidity, which is obvious to anybody who is listening to it. A lot of contradictions, going in one direction and at the same time going exactly in the opposite directions. How the world treated the crisis situations by fueling the war instead of stopping the war. How all the national and other myths fueling the killing. How the religious concept still acting as primary vectors in the development of the relationship. We are very, very stupid on a large scale. We might be less stupid even on the personal scale than on the large scale. We might be more reasonable not having those scientific advisors than some presidents that do have scientific advisors, because nobody is interested in influencing us, and we are left alone on the personal level, so we can make more or less rational decisions sometimes. But higher you get into the power, more factors are trying to manipulate you and influence you, and it's plain stupid on all levels. But even if we look at our private lives, how many stupid things we do in our lives. And most of the things we're just trying to show off, that we look good, but we don't look good. That we're healthy, but we are not healthy. That we are smart, but we are not smart. We are efficient, but we are not efficient. We are friendly, but we are not friendly. Like everything is just a show off. The images that are not true, and we have a very deeply rooted inability to analyze ourselves, our life, and the world around us. So being human doesn't sound very attractive because it's a mess. It's a huge mess, all right? And this mess is not resolved. We have uneven progress in one directions. In one direction, we have good progress, like communication. Obviously, we can communicate separated by thousands of kilometers, high quality communication and so on. But in other directions, we even have the absence of any progress. Like I said, that people were more efficient and content in previous times because they have been raised accordingly to which functions they have been expected to perform in their societies. Right now, we have such a chaotic education that young people come to the world very confused. They don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to do. They don't know what are their aims and what do they want to achieve and things like that. And it's not the bias. It's not like every generation is talking bad about the young generation. It's objective things that have changed tremendously. We still try to educate our children according to our values and views, but those values and views are not adequate anymore. What do you think about it?
Oh, you brought in so many important issues. The first one, I thank you for it, that it is important not just to understand how we became humans, but how long we will continue to stay humans.
And whether we want to be humans at all, because
yes,
as I described, it's not a very
exactly. And here we come to, I would say, demarcation problem. So when will we still say we are humans, right? If we change our hands and legs or head, or after which change we are not humans any longer. That's hard. Well, scientists started to call someone Homo at the beginning. Just Homo, I do not remember who was the first Homo, but Homo skillful like that, and a range of Homo, still Homo sapiens. So can in the future we say something like Homo digital, for example, or at the some stage we take away that beginning Homo, we will not be Homo at all. At which stage? It could be Homo digital, and then it's not Homo at all. I can't say, but we have to discuss these criteria already. Maybe to understand ourselves better and to understand our
Absolutely.
future.
The self-reflection, analyzing, trying to understand the motives, the aims, building the strong but flexible philosophy and the view of the world is very important to each and every human creature. But we can see that only few are indulged in those activities. A lot of people, including myself, we do a lot of things in life unconsciously. And when we try to recall those things we have done, we have a hard time to to understand why and how it have happened. Every morning, especially for us who have changed the countries, we wake up and we need a moment to understand where are we, what are we doing here, why are we here, and it's a challenging thing, right?
And before we
You're
discuss,
very new in Canada. You changed the country recently. I am in Canada for 22 years, and still I wake up and ask myself where I am, what I'm doing here, and so on and so on.
yes, and before I discussed with you a topic about rights of artificial creatures, remember? So that's also important that how long we keep this definition as homo, so we still have rights. Or if we transit to something what will be not human, if that creature will still have human rights or new set of rights. Because usually when they say we identify someone as a human, we granted them with a certain set of rights.
Yeah, but as you know, I have the book about disappointment in justice system, and the source of rights usually is in the justice system. The justice system is so corrupted and so unwell where it comes to human affairs that to expect that
Talk
they will
about not legislation, just ethics.
ethics. Well, ethics is going quite close with like I brought you the example. I would forbid to beat up the robots because it looks awful. And it ignites the aggressive behavior in some towards humans because they are very human-like. But the same we can say about the video games, where the violence is so profound and so basic and so unrestricted that our kids can be very much freaks. We didn't have that ability to execute our violence in our young age. We don't know what differences have been made to those who are the modern people. Even at the war, those soldiers, 18 years old, 20 years old, how do they perceive killing today after they have played those games? Maybe it's easier for them to do this. Maybe they have less reflection about that they're actually killing the human beings. Maybe they treat it as a video game at the war. Nobody have studied these issues, but that would be very interesting to study. Maybe we were thinking that with the development of the human race, we are making the war less probable, but probably with those video games, we made it even more easy to run. I don't know if we all know those things when the soldier first killed someone, he had hard feelings and so on and so on. I met young men who were fighting, and at the question whether they killed anyone, they say, I don't know, I was shooting, they were falling. So it's a remark which very similar to what they would say about just the video game. This inability to see the ethical and moral elements in their deeds, I believe pretty serious. Another thing is the positive way, because we obviously have the reduction of violence. Because of the sublimation, it might be. because those who have those urges, they go to the virtual world and leave their urges there. Not necessarily they translate their urges to kill to their real behavior. All right. So we are living in such soup of changes that it's quite impossible to analyze them. And like we were talking about the singularity, when those changes will become absolutely unmanageable, we don't have that time to stop and see what's going on, because when we're trying to analyze today, it's already tomorrow, and all our analysis is falling apart because it's not relevant anymore. Yeah, it's very challenging to make sense of what makes us humans, what human is, how modern human is changing, and where are we heading with that change.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really hard to predict what will means to be human in future. And I would like to bring in one more factor to our discussion, that humans' extension to the space, I mean cosmos. So if human will live on other planet and will be changed biologically, extremely, really just adapting to those conditions, will them be humans?
To change, really to change very strongly, you need the natural selection. You need humans to die and others who have better qualities to survive. In modern societies, biological selection is not very much working because of the medicine and other psychological and other traits. They do influence. For example, if someone is very reckless, he will die in the car crash before he will be able to give the offspring. But biologically, like you send people on Mars and their body changes during their life, but their children, when born again, more or less like those that born on Earth, more or less, and they will change again, but there will not be this selection of children who are less fit will die, and those that are more fit. So this drastic change into Martian will not be facilitated by the natural selection. That's what I'm trying to say. It will be probably more the changes due to less gravity and so on and so on. Also, we don't quite understand fully the mechanisms of those changes that might be not only based on the genetic that we understand. Maybe there is something more to it, because just natural selection cannot explain some of the changes that we might observe, especially when the change is needed right away from generation to generation, and not as a result of many generations and natural selection. The conquest of other planets is the stupidest thing that we might think of. It's again the show off. There is no reason whatsoever for humans to risk their lives and to invest so much effort to actually physically bring themselves through the vastness of space with all the radiation and deprivation of so many sorts to the planets. They are so inhospitable that providing life there is very questionable, especially when we still have huge areas on Earth that are undeveloped. Elon Musk, go to Australia and terraform the Australian desert. You have the whole continent which looks like Mars. And it has air, and it has some water, and it doesn't have that much radiation. So I do believe that it's a show off. Like he has sent this Tesla to space with the dummy astronaut there. So everything is done is probably that way. It's probably for the purpose of buying Twitter and letting Trump have Twitter again. We don't know. So if you would talk to serious astronomers and astrophysicists and other scientists, they will support the idea that the automatic exploration is way more efficient, is way cheaper, and allow us to get way more results in terms of learning what's going on other planets. Bringing human is very complicated, very costly, and I do not believe that there is a reason to make a really colony. If you ask me whether there will be colonies, it might be, because humans are doing so many huge, stupid things, even on Earth. So I might say everything is possible, right? But there is absolutely no reason for that. Any asteroid, any catastrophe we can imagine cannot change the Earth to the point that it will be so inhospitable as Mars. I'm not talking about Venus. But even if it happens, it's way easier to adapt here without flying anywhere, to dig us in, to build the shelters from this catastrophe, rather than trying to get humans anywhere. We are very inefficient in going to space. It's still very dangerous and inefficient affair. And it's very different just to go to near Earth orbit or to go to Mars, millions kilometers away. And so I do believe that even though it sounds very attractive, we landed on Moon, we landed on Mars, but we don't get into volcano, for example, because theoretically it's almost impossible, right? There are things where humans do not belong. There are places where they are not supposed to be, right? They are not supposed to go into volcano, for example. They are not supposed to go on Venus. They are not supposed to go on Mars. We can and able to send the robotic stations, yes, to collect the information, to get new ideas from new worlds, to search for life, to understand better who we are. But our robotics are way more efficient, cheap, and safe than any humans that would be sent out there.
Well, but marine creatures were not supposed to stay on land, but they are. I do not know if that
yes, but that wouldn't be really. You can say that the age of exploration when we discovered America, right? But it was quite different. America didn't have the problems with oxygen, radiation, and other stuff. And even there, we have made a devastation with epidemics and killing off the First Nation population almost entirely. Only 5% of the population that was in pre-Columbian Americas is alive now. Like only 5%, like 95% of the population 300-400 years ago has been completely killed, mainly by biological factors, because they didn't have this immune response to European diseases. So when we look at from our perspective, we found great land and developed great countries, but we actually killed entire civilizations that were here. And if that would happen vice versa, just the opposite, that they would come and do the same thing to us, that would be the greatest apocalyptic catastrophe ever. And I actually have a story where I tell the story in the opposite way, that the Central American Indians are coming to conquest Europe, and what we have now as a result of this conquest. So we cannot compare it with going to other planets. It's again, going to other planet, you need to compare with trying to get into the active volcano. It's inhospitable, absolutely unforgiving environment that can be conquered only as a ideologically motivated act. And it really, we cannot speak of massive colonies as an act of smart action on part of humans.
I do not know if that's reasonable to go far away, but I just know that humans still and always eager to extend frontiers. So we will move there anyway. But I agree that it's absolutely not effective to deliver our biological bodies there. Let's imagine that we use drones, say avatars. And let's imagine that somewhere there, on another planet, each time the drone is created, it gets human consciousness from far away, from here.
The speed of light will limit our ability to react.
So would they consider those creatures to be humans just because they wear our consciousness?
The speed of light limits our ability to react. It takes about 30-40 minutes for the signal to go back and forth to Mars. So if there will be danger in the follow stone and you will try to treat it, it will be too late to respond, because there is a limit of how the information can
dinosaurus problem.
It's one of the problems, but you can build the virtual worlds where you can play that way, which will be quite sufficient. That's what the futurists didn't expect, that the real expansion will happen not in the real worlds. The appearance of these virtual worlds has created the new direction for our efforts, and we less and less develop the physical world because we are more emerged into the virtual worlds. Yeah, we have touched this last frontiers of being human, and obviously we're living in very challenging times. And we have way more questions than we have answers. And I would like to thank you for the topic and for this discussion.
Thank you for your ideas.
Thank you.